Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's Amin here, and today I am filming a video that is quite vulnerable. It's probably going to be quite long, so I encourage you to get a snack. I have some tea in here, some Indian tea made by my brother, and then gajrela, which is like a snack slash dessert made by my sister. And we're just gonna get comfortable and have a bit of a chat. This video is meant to be very informal, as most of my videos are if you've been on my channel before, and I thought I would do a little sit down conversation update on all things mental health. If you have been on my channel before, you might have noticed that I've talked a couple of times about starting therapy recently, and so of course we're going to be focusing on that a bit in this video as well. Some things that I've learned, challenges that I'm facing, and kind of just to open the dialogue a little bit. I know mental health is a very taboo topic in general in society, but I also feel like in our Indian culture, as like a first generation Canadian, it is something completely new for a lot of people in my age group, a lot of people in my generation, just something kind of hard to talk about with their families, and just in general to kind of even come to the point where you are okay with saying out loud that you're in therapy or you want to start therapy or you're interested in it. And so I kind of want to share a little bit about my journey and then just some changes that have been happening in my life. I've been on YouTube now for about a year and a half, and there have been some monumental changes that have happened ever since I first started making videos, and so we'll dive a little bit deeper into all of those. I feel like there are two main things that I kind of have been struggling with, or things that have just come up recently, or even actually some of them are not even that recent, just things that I've struggled with in general. And so how I started therapy, how I kind of came to that conclusion, I talked about it in one of my vlogs before, which I'll put up on the screen. But basically, by profession, I'm a genetic counselor, which means I obviously counsel people, but more so with like scientific concepts, like of course their genetics. Specifically, I do prenatal, which is people who are either pregnant or considering pregnancy, family planning, and they're very hard topics to talk about. So a lot of times I'm counseling about giving diagnoses or potentially ending a pregnancy, so really hard things in general. But the things that I'm going to talk about today are more personal, I think, rather than career oriented, which some of you might be on my channel because you're interested in genetic counseling and you want to know how does it impact you as a career in terms of your mental health. And I have to say that of course there is a part of your mental health that gets impacted in any type of career where you are giving a lot of time and energy and emotions to the people, your clients, your patients that you're serving. But that's not really what has been on my mind lately. I don't really have a plan for what I'm gonna say. It's kind of just like word vomit because I am an oversharer. And so yeah, I was saying I started therapy in November, and I meet with my therapist bi-weekly every 2 weeks, which works for me, but I know some people are weekly, some people are like even less frequently, so you just gotta find something that works for you. And I am now able to afford it, which is another big thing that prevents a lot of people from going through with therapy, is that you have to pay for it out of pocket. At least that's how it is in Ontario, which is kind of shitty, but that's what we're at right now. And so the first thing that kind of drew me towards or gave me the push of going through this is that there are a lot of changes happening in my personal life, in my family life, and I wanted to be able to navigate those a little bit better. And so in general, I think the last like 6-ish months of my life have been a lot of change. I moved back home after graduating from grad school, and that was after 6 years of kind of being on my own. One of the things that I talked about with my therapist was like all of these external factors that are happening right now, all of these things that are changing are outside of my control. And part of it is that I am such a planner. Like even when I was young, I had like my 10-year plan figured out, right? Like I always said, I wanted to be married by this age, I wanted to have kids by this age, I wanted to like travel the world by this age. So things like that, I always had it lined up. And now because of these external things that are going on, it's not really in my control as much, and I kind of makes me feel really uncomfortable. And some of you might be able to relate to this. It's not that I'm not flexible, like I'm a quite flexible person, like if things come up I'm willing to navigate them, but it's just the idea of not knowing what's next, or not knowing where I'm going to be in like 6 months, what I'm going to be doing in like 6 months is kind of hard for me. And it's also hard because this is obviously a work in progress, but like I've been with my partner for so long, and we were kids when we first started going out, and I knew like we were, you know, gonna be together for like ever. And even then I had like everything figured out in my head, but he's not as much of a planner. So over the years, like I've learned to just accept that that's the way he is, even though it's not the way I am. Like I would be like, okay, like when do you see us being engaged? And when we were younger, he would, not even younger, like last year, he would always be like, I don't know, whenever it happens, it happens. And that made me feel so uncomfortable because I need to know, like, okay, when are these things happening? And so over the last few months, like he's actually been giving me answers, because we're at that stage now where we're like old enough to have these conversations, like serious conversations. And so that's like just relying on people for these kinds of things. And like I guess it's another thing that, now I'm talking about it, I don't like relying on people for things that have to do with my life. But when you're trying to like I guess that's another thing that happens when you move back home and you're with your partner again after being long distance, is that you have to consider a lot of other people. And so I struggle with that, I still do. I'm trying to work on it, obviously, like just in general I'm trying to work on it, because it's not a healthy habit that I find. It stresses me out, just like worrying about all of these things that I literally cannot do anything about. So I'm trying. That's something that I'm struggling with. Let me know if you also struggle with this, if you have a similar personality, and what do you do to kind of navigate it, like when there are things happening outside of your control that you literally cannot do anything about. There's a huge thing that has to do with like my family, but that's more of a question mark. And then of course like my job also is a contract job, and my contract is ending in a few months technically, so I don't know what I'm going to be doing after. Am I going to stay there? Am I going to go somewhere else? Where am I going to go? When do I start looking for jobs? So that's a huge thing. And then of course like my future with my partner, like what is our plan? How long are things going to take? And then it costs a lot of money to get married. Not even that. It costs a lot of money to have the wedding that I want. And so like that's a huge question mark. There's a lot of question marks in my life right now. And all of that is like difficult to navigate. So that's one thing that I've been struggling with. Another thing that's kind of like a little bit more of a personal thing. So when I think about myself, one of the values that is really important to me is being self-sufficient and independent and just doing my own thing. And I think part of that is because I am such a feminist that I need to like prove, it's partly because I'm a girl, right? And I need to prove to everybody that I'm capable of doing whatever I want to do. But like my drive in life just comes from being independent. Like that is just what I enjoy doing. And so the biggest shift of my life basically was when I had to move back home after graduating. And the reason, if you're not familiar with my channel or whatever, the reason that is because I lived away from home for 4 years in undergrad, and then I lived away for 2 years in a different country for grad school, and then I got a job basically in my hometown. And so it makes the most sense for me to live back at home so that I can go to my job. And it's really not an option for me to move out at this point, like not even like financially, it doesn't really make any sense. And then it just doesn't make any sense in my life at this point to move out. So that's not an option. So I'm living at home, which is fine. Like I don't have an issue with that. But the thing that I struggle with is that I enjoy doing things on my own a lot. And I never realized how important that was to me until I couldn't do it anymore. And Well, when I lived on my own, I would just get up and leave and just do whatever I wanted whenever I wanted. Like I would go to the gym by myself. Like when I was an undergrad, like I didn't have a car, right? So I would just take the transit everywhere. And so I would go to the gym by myself. I used to work by myself. I used to go to the mall by myself. Whenever I wanted, I did whatever I wanted. And then when I lived in New York City, right? I lived like right outside of New York City. I lived next to freaking New York City. So then I would go to the city by myself. I would plan a whole day. I would try new lunch places. I would eat alone at restaurants. I would go to Central Park by myself. I went to museums by myself. Like I pretty much, like I don't like to rely on people, which is similar to what I was saying before. And so whatever I wanted to do, I just did it and I didn't have to ask anyone. And it's really easy for me to get away with it. One of the things that I said since the beginning was when I was picking which place to go to work, I had a couple of options and I knew that coming back home, and I've always said this, it's not a bad thing, but I knew by coming back home, I would be prioritizing my relationships and my family and my finances, but I would not be prioritizing my self-growth. And if I chose to stay somewhere away from home, like New York, for example, I would be prioritizing my self-growth, but not my family, not my relationships, not my finances. And at the end of the day, obviously we know which one won out of the two. So now I'm struggling of how to make sure that I'm maintaining that self-growth while being at home, while being in a completely different environment. And this has come up like a few times in therapy because it's something that's like still gnawing at me and I don't know exactly how to fix it. And this is a conversation that I had with my partner like really early on, and he is like the most supportive person. So you guys will just, whenever you get to meet him, like in the video, you'll understand. But like we talked about this in the beginning and he was like, okay, what can I do to support you? And I think the biggest thing for me is just like, I want to be able to travel the world. I want to be able to do things by myself. But culturally speaking, I can't really do that. And just safety speaking, I don't know if I would be okay to do that. But what I was talking to my therapist about recently was she was like, when you talk about doing things by yourself, by being independent and like traveling and doing whatever you want to do, like there's a spark in your face that I have not seen in like any other session. And I was like, okay, it's true. Like what can I do to make this come back? What can I do to bring this spark back in my life? And so my homework is like trying to figure out things that I can do, small things, maybe start small and then go big, things that I can do to bring back that joy, to bring back that sense of independence and self-sufficiency. And I used to do these things called solo dates in New York where I would just like do things by myself. And a part of it I think is just a test to prove to myself that I can do whatever I want to do by myself. So I think what I want to start doing is like one day a week, or at least one day every other week, just do something on my own that I don't have to do with somebody else. Not that there's anything you have to do with somebody else, but when I come back home, I fall into this habit of like, okay, I want to try out a new place to eat. I should go with my friends, or I should go with my boyfriend because I don't get to see them as often. And now that I'm close to them, I might as well, you know, make it a social event, which is important also. But I think there needs to be some balance. And since I work Monday to Friday, like my weekends are all like spent being social, which is fine. But now it's kind of catching up to me where I'm like, I need my weekends to also be for myself. And now that my boyfriend has started a new job, and it sounds like stupidly lame, but he started a new job where he is working every other weekend. So now like to me, I'm like, okay, so he's not available every weekend. So the weekends that he's working, I should be using that to do my own thing. And it's not like I need permission from a man to do my own thing, please. Do not think that's what I'm saying. It just takes away the option of hanging out with him. So it encourages me to do something by myself. So maybe I'll start small. Maybe I'll like go to a cafe by myself for the first time here at home. It's also different because I have a car, so I feel like I could just drive anywhere, which is not as exciting as having to take the transit anywhere, which I could, but it's also winter and I don't want to do that. Ontario was just in a lockdown and we just opened up, so all of these things were not an option for a long time. But I'm like, okay, now maybe I can go to a cafe by myself. Maybe I can go to a mall by myself. And then eventually maybe I can go to a movie by myself. Like if I want to do something, why offer it as a social event when I can just do it by myself? If I want to go on a hike, I can go by myself. Eventually, by the end of the year, my goal is to do a solo trip by myself. And I know it's going to be a huge shock to my family now because they don't know what I was doing when I wasn't living with them. Not that I was like doing any bad things necessarily, but like they don't know the level of independence that I had because I didn't tell them about it, right? Whereas now, if I were to tell them, okay, you know what, I'm traveling to the other side of the country by myself by the end of next week, they're gonna be like, what is wrong with you? Hell no, you're not going. So I feel like I have to take some baby steps, and then eventually by the end of the year, I want to actually travel somewhere by myself. I think it's probably gonna be in North America. That's my, just financially speaking, but also like for my level of comfort, somewhere new that I've never been, but somewhere that also has English speaking people so that I can communicate. And then eventually maybe I will go somewhere internationally by myself where it's a little bit more scary, but scary as in like nerve-wracking, not scary as in, oh my God, I don't want to go. But I think that's what I need to do is just like get out of this funk that I'm in. Like it's so comfortable that I'm uncomfortable at this point. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I thought it would be a good idea for me to just like word vomit all of this out, because everything that you see on the internet and everything that you see on social media, it's not 100% accurate. Obviously, like I try my best to kind of talk about everything, which is why I'm an oversharer. Like I don't want to only ever say the good things that are happening, and there's some things obviously that I'm gonna keep private. Like I'm not gonna share details about other things that are going on in my life because it's not relevant to all of you guys, no offense. But the things that I find relevant to other people, I will share them, good or bad. And I hope that if any of this resonated with you, I hope that you maybe got some ideas of what you could do to make things a little bit better, maybe spark some of that passion for yourself. If you have any ideas of what I could do to kind of figure out these things or some strategies, let me know. I would really appreciate it. If you have started therapy, let me know what your thoughts are. What are some things that you've taken away? What are some things that have been helpful for you? And if you are considering it, I totally recommend it. And one of the biggest things that pushed me toward therapy also was I wanted to have someone that I could talk to that was just there to listen to me. Like it wasn't a reciprocal relationship, if that makes sense. I feel like when I talk to like my partner or my friends or my family members about certain things, I don't want to be a burden in a way, and then they would feel the need to share their problems, and I don't want to do that. And so I wanted somebody who was there just to listen to me, even if I had to pay them for it, but I didn't feel like worried that I was putting too much on them in a way. And so therapy has been really helpful for me, and just to clear my thoughts and have some goals of like what I want to do and how to better navigate life as a young adult. I am almost 25, which also makes me a little bit uncomfortable because I had a plan in my head about where I wanted to be when I was 25. And I can't say that I'm not meeting all my goals, it's just things are a little bit different than what's expected. So this video was different. It's not the usual stuff that I talk about, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you like chatting with me. I hope you like this conversation. If you want me to do more videos like this, I would be happy to give you updates along the way. And if you really like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more vulnerable content from me, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.